B&M Hypers are some of the most popular rides in their parks, but there's only 14 of them currently operating in the world. Known for their big drops, long ride times, and most of all, graceful floater airtime. Every one that I've ridden ranks in my top 50, at least at the time of this recording. People say these are all similar rides, but is that really true? Let's throw bias aside and dig down into the details of this model. These are the world's B&M Hypers, by the numbers. First off, we need to define what a hyper is. The B&M Hyper coaster model includes all of their non-inverting coasters, no matter how big they are. I'm throwing out all their gigas, because I consider them, well, gigas and not hypers. And they had their own video where they were thrown in with the Morgan and the Intamin gigas. But there are a few of these that don't crack the 200 foot mark, and I left those in since I'll never talk about those ever again, and I'd like to see how they stack up. I also want to mention that the track length I'll show on the screen, and the one that I use to calculate pacing, omits the track on the lift, the brakes, and the station. I was able to calculate these thanks to the help of Google Maps and the Pythagorean theorem. Most of these coasters have a mid-course brake run, but since none of them hit that hard, and they only last a second or two, I didn't treat them any different from any of the other track where the action is happening. Just like my giga list, instead of ranking these on ride time like I normally do, I'm ranking these on pacing. These coasters are built for speed and airtime, so I think a fast-paced ride is more valuable than a long one. Since all these rides are similar, the ones that last longer probably do so because they take their elements at a slower rate.
For God's sake, just give me the damn number!
That's way too many disclaimers. Let's start the list. Coming in 14th place at 51.8 feet per second is Hollywood Dream at Universal Studios Japan. This is one of those not so hyper hypers, featuring the shortest drop of the bunch at 144.3 feet, the slowest top speed at 55.9 miles per hour, and the shortest track length at 3,055 feet. The only category where it's not dead last is ride time, where it ranks 10th with 59 seconds. This is the weirdest coaster on the list, since it wasn't built to be like the others. This is kind of equivalent to Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket at Universal Orlando, where it has on-ride sound and lots of theming, and the ride experience is secondary. And this is the only one on the list that runs a train backwards, so while it's not the most thrilling, it's the most unique, and I'm sure it's a cool experience. In 13th place with 55.9 feet per second is Apollo's Chariot at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. The original B&M Hyper offers 72 seconds of ride time, ranking all the way up at second, so it's the complete inverse of their pacing rank, but otherwise it's right in the middle of the pack, 8th in drop and speed, and 9th in length. This is where layout comes into play. Rides that stay closer to the ground will cover track more quickly, something Apollo doesn't do. In 12th place with 57.5 feet per second is Goliath at Laron. Yet another mini hyper, also ranking 12th in drop with 170.6 feet. It's Laron. Even when they get nice things, there's gotta be a catch. This is built to be a pure airtime machine. Hills going out, hills coming back. Very repetitive, but airtime sells. It's also 12th in speed and length, but bumps up to 11th in ride time with 57 seconds. In 11th place with 57.8 feet per second is Flight of the Himalayan Eagle Music Roller Coaster at Happy Valley in China. Other than having a name with way too much going on, this 2019 Hyper only reaches a top height of 157.5 feet, good for second to last. It's also 13th in speed, length, and ride time, clocking in at 55 seconds, with Hollywood Dream really being the only thing that's keeping it out of the basement for most of these categories. It's tough to rate these mini hypers against the full-size ones. Those could be as much as 100 feet taller, but as long as the elements are in the right proportions, I'm sure they deliver, but I've never ridden one of these short ones. In 10th place at 58.4 feet per second is Raging Bull at Six Flags Great America. Also one of the originals, opening shortly after Apollo's Chariot. Raging Bull has gotten a lot of heat from coaster fans for being a hyper twister. It doesn't have that basic out and back layout like Goliath at Laron. It's on a more compact and confined plot of land, compared to some of these others that stretch out on a long skinny area. You don't get cheated on ride time when you ride the Bull. You get a good 70 seconds, good for 3rd place. Its other stats fall more in line with the pacing number, ranking 9th in drop and speed, and 8th in length. It does play high off the ground in the first half, including an insufferable trim brake on its camelback that slows it down even more. But that low to the ground second half helps that pacing number. In 9th place with 60.8 feet per second is Intimidator at Carowinds. I'm sure this is the coaster that's the most pissed off about changing my format for this video, since it ranks number 1 in ride time at 73 seconds. It ranks 6th in drop and 7th in speed, but the most telling stat for me is the 2nd place finish in length. That longer track length is going to extend the ride time, and it's also going to hurt the pacing, unless it has a whole lot of speed to go with it. But having ridden this a bunch of times, I know it runs slow at some of the peaks of those camelbacks, especially if those trims are hitting hard. And that final helix is pretty slow, so it's fun for a good long ride, but not the most intimidating when it comes to intensity. In 8th place with 64.3 feet per second is Mako at SeaWorld Orlando. It's down in 10th place in drop and speed, but up at 7th place in length and ride time. Mako seems to ride a little lower to the ground compared to other hypers, including that speed hill right before the midcourse. And the way it flies through that twister finale I'm sure helps its pacing number, even though it's on the lower end of height and speed. In 7th place with 64.6 feet per second is Diamondback at Kings Island. Other than pacing, the rest of the stats are very impressive. 3rd in drop, 2nd in speed, and there's no other hyper that covers more prime ride track than Diamondback, with 4,456 feet. It's also one of the longer hypers in ride time, with 69 seconds, ranking 4th. Maybe it's too long for its own good, losing too much speed by the end, especially around that final helix between the mid-course brake run and the final splashdown. Not that it means anything for this video, but this is my favorite of the ones that I've ridden. This has huge camelbacks and a ton of airtime, while still having an interesting layout. This thing is a beast. In 6th place with 66.2 feet per second is Behemoth at Canada's Wonderland. I said Diamondback was a beast. This has the same height and drop, ranking 3rd, also 3rd in length, and is 5th in speed and ride time. I know Behemoth tops a lot of people's hyper lists, and judging on the numbers, it's hard to argue with. It's definitely one of the bigger ones out there, with out and back camelbacks, a helix finale, and even throws in a couple more hills before the brakes. In 5th place with 67.4 feet per second is Goliath at Six Flags Over Georgia. I was very surprised that this ranks as high as it does, considering it's one of the 4 coasters on this list that fails to drop its riders a full 200 feet, falling 25 feet short of the mark, and ranking 11th, also 11th in speed, and what probably helps its pacing is the 10th place finish in length, and 12th place finish in ride time. The ride is over in 57 seconds, and the entire second half of the ride is full of small bunny hills, as it seems to ride downhill back towards the station. It makes for some great airtime moments, and a solid pacing stat. In 4th place with 67.8 feet per second is Nitro at Six Flags Great Adventure. Ranking 3rd in drop, 2nd in speed, and 4th in length, this is a legit full-size hyper with a really strong layout, including an upward helix, before the airtime hill finale of all shapes and sizes, ranking 6th in ride time at 65 seconds. Not much else to say about it, other than I think it's underrated. In 3rd place with 69.2 feet per second is Candemonium at Hershey Park. As much as I thought this ride was pretty average, I do admit that I did not have an issue with its pacing. I did have an issue with its length, and it only ranks 11th in that category. Not only is it a short ride, but I think everything after the speed hill is kind of boring, especially when that trim hits really hard right before the turn around the Kisses Fountain. It's also not a surprise that it ranks dead last in ride time with just 53 seconds. It ranks 7th in drop and 6th in speed, so that seems okay. It just needs a couple more elements that make it a more complete ride, even if it hurts the pacing. In 2nd place with 69.94 feet per second is Shambhala at Port Aventura. The difference between 1st and 2nd is so razor thin that I had to extend the number out another decimal place, with Shambhala being the one that falls just short of the top spot. This is a monster. It blows away the rest of the field in height by a full 36 feet, and it also tops the list in speed, more than 3 miles per hour, better than Nitro and Diamondback. For its height, it probably could have used a little more track length, only ranking 6th, and it's all the way down at 9th place in ride time with 60 seconds. Given its good pacing, it seems like it could afford to toss its riders out of their seat a couple more times before hitting the final brakes. In 1st place with 69.97 feet per second is Silverstar at Europa Park. That's a minuscule 0.03 second difference in pacing. And in terms of public perception, Silverstar and Shambhala couldn't be much different. I haven't ridden either one, but Silverstar is kinda looked down on, and Shambhala is seen as the best of the best. Again, the quality of the layout plays a lot into that, and that's something that really doesn't show up when you just look at the numbers. Silverstar is 2nd in height, although it is the coaster that was 36 feet behind Shambhala, and it's also 4th in speed, 5th in length, and like Shambhala, it's on the lower end of ride time, ranking 8th at 63 seconds. It almost seems like the same overall story as Shambhala, just on a slightly smaller scale, and maybe could have afforded to expand its layout by a couple elements. So there you have it, B&M Hypers by the numbers. The biggest surprise for me was how strong Silverstar ranked here, since people generally don't have the best things to say about it. Also, how well paced Goliath at Over Georgia was, considering its stats are more on par with the other Goliath at Laron, which finds itself at the bottom of most of these categories. I also feel a little more validated about my lower opinion of Candemonium, considering it's very similar to Mako, and that's one of my favorites. Its last place finish in ride time, and 11th place finish in length makes sense, given the experience that I had on it. Let me know what you thought about these stats here. Did anything here surprise you? Or maybe validate something that you already believe to be true? Sound off in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like, and subscribe if you're new here and love coaster content. I have a playlist with more videos just like this one, looking at different models and parts. And be sure to check out my Discord server. That's where you can chat with other fans of the channel. And also check out my second channel. I made this one for other video creators that are looking for copyright-free footage. Those links are down below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.